Welcome to Fuck the Stigma News. Today we're covering harm reduction. First off, what is harm reduction? The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Administration Services states, harm reduction is an evidence-based approach that is critical to engaging with people who use drugs and equipping them with life-saving tools and information to create positive change in their lives and potentially save their lives. Harm reduction is a key pillar in the United States overdose prevention strategy.
There are conflicting opinions about harm reduction. Some people believe it should not be available. Some say it is enabling addicts in active addiction. Others believe it provides an opportunity for people to live a little longer to have a chance to change their lives.
According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services, harm reduction offers an opportunity to reach people who aren't otherwise accessing healthcare services and offer them naloxone to reverse an overdose and help connect them to other needed services.
As an example, treatment services such as medications for opioid use disorder can be co-located with harm reduction services and offered as an option. This potential connection to treatment is critical when the data shows that only around 1 of 10 people with a substance use disorder have received treatment. Nearly all people with a substance use disorder who didn't get treatment at a specialty facility didn't think they needed treatment.
So today we hope to provide some insight into the harm reduction world by bringing on Jackson to share his experience with harm reduction. Welcome to episode 2 of Fuck the Stigma News. I have Maddie here today as my co-host.
Hi.
And I have Jackson here today as our guest.
Hello.
Yeah, so I wanted to kind of touch on the point of harm reduction. I wanted to be more informed on this because I've seen that there's nonprofits, for example, going to Los Angeles, Skid Row, and riding around on golf carts, providing people with needles and other like drug paraphernalia so people, for example, don't spread more diseases. But I thought it was a little controversial because, like, is that enabling or is it really helping and making the place safer?
Yeah.
And like saving addicts' lives.
Yeah. So what is harm reduction to you?
To me, trying to meet people at where they're at instead of trying to meet someone at a place that you want them to be. So ideally, we want people to be at the point where they can go into treatment and get help and get into a program or sober living. But it's harm reduction is accepting people for where they're at in life. In their addiction, maybe they're not ready, but with the opioid epidemic, we can't just wait around for them to be ready to try to help save their lives. Because of fentanyl, and fentanyl's in everything, not just opiates. It's touched everything.
Do you think handing out like pipes and clean needles that's all harm reduction and not enabling? Explain why you think so.
So from what I understand, the earliest forms of harm reduction were people getting drunk, walking home from the bar. And I believe it was over in England. And what happened was it was winter time, and a bunch of people were slipping and falling off this bridge on their walk home. So they tried to limit the amount of consumption or on like certain days or, the time. This didn't work. And there were still deaths happening because of it. So what they decided to do was put a fence up along the bridge. And I mean, that's a form of harm reduction. It's accepting that you cannot
Change people's behavior.
Yeah, harm reduction isn't about changing the actual problem. It's about mitigating the consequences until they're ready to solve that initial problem. And that goes back to the opioid thing, that dead addicts don't recover. It's keeping people alive until they can make that choice for themselves is huge. One of the good things about that too is there's data that can be produced with that to help treatment facilities and other things. So it's not just about passing out syringes or safe sex, safe snorting, safe smoking kits.
What's safe snorting?
Safe snorting kits. So in the kits that we make, it's a card, like a blank credit card type thing. And then I believe there's plastic razors in there too. And then straws, sterile straws.
You said so you worked for You did harm reduction and you went out.
Yeah, I volunteered at Iowa Harm Reduction Coalition. A good friend of mine started it. I was kind of there for somewhat the beginning of it, and like could like see like the progression, and yeah, it was a big learning experience about like addiction and like that other side of things that like it just fascinated me. I
Where,
guess.
where was that located?
It was in Cedar Rapids,
Okay.
Iowa, and that's actually
I
what my shirt is.
support not stigma.
We have like fuck the stigma, right? And like the flip side of that too is also support not stigma. So like supporting them, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was kind of confused for a second.
Yeah.
Support not stigma.
It was a really interesting time. My girlfriend who passed away from an overdose, she was really heavily involved. And so like people would call a hotline, right? We would pass out cards, hit the streets, pass out cards, pass out like we had like little matchbooks too that had the phone number on it, and we just passed them out and explained that, hey, if you need Narcan, if you need supplies, call this number and we'll take care of you. Steph was very like passionate about it, and she was the one who had the phone number and would go and deliver supplies. And just the look on people's faces, like when we would drop off supplies, was like priceless, because just like the amount of gratitude that me and Steph were shown. Because when you're out there on the streets using, you feel this sense of like, nobody cares about me. Like I'm just another junkie. I'm just another statistic. And a lot of people get cut off from their family. So to have someone who is there going, hey, you are worth it. I do care about you. That's why I'm giving you Narcan. That's why I drove all the way down here. Sometimes in, 1, 2 in the morning, we would get a call and we'd go, because we wanted people to know that we care about you. Like, you're not in this alone. And that creates this atmosphere that like they know that they can come and talk to us. And if they want other services, like to get treatment or to get into a program, like we can help. And it's a way for them to feel comfortable coming to someone and asking for help.
I hear you, and you started seeing you started getting gratitude for the work
Yeah.
that you were doing. But how did you initially get interested into it? Like, what kind of drove you to want to get into harm reduction?
So a good friend of mine, Andy Bueller, it was a friend of mine and Steph's, started dating Sarah, the founder of Iowa Harm Reduction Coalition. And I wasn't into it then. Like, I didn't even really know what this was. But I know, like, every time I talked to him, he was, like, talking about it, really passionate about it. And then he ended up passing away from an overdose. And that, like, got me talking to Sarah. Sarah came to my house to talk, and she had a trunk full of needles, full of Narcan, like a whole SUV full. And she was like, here, do you think you'd be able to pass these out? Do you know people? And it's like, wait, you're just giving me thousands of syringes and like, hundreds of doses of Narcan to give out? She was like, yeah, that's what we do. And we just got talking, and it was kind of a way to like honor his memory at first, but then it just exploded into like this passion of ours. And actually this exact shirt was his shirt, and then Sarah gave it to Steph after he died, and then now I wear this shirt. It's kind of like, it's kind of beat up and it's kind of like raggedy, I feel like, but it has like a lot of meaning to me
100%.
behind it, because these were like the OG shirts that we made like when we were first starting it up. So
This is making me a little sad, because the idea of like meeting people where they're at is kind of hard to grasp for most people when it comes to like mental health or addicts. It's addicts are just kind of cast out, and like most people are like, oh, like that's enabling. But why don't people who are sick, addicts are sick, why don't they deserve a chance to get to a point where they're able to get better? Like you said, that addicts don't recover. I think harm reduction it sounds really beneficial. Sounds like you were doing good things out there. And I know that you've experienced firsthand, like, people kind of being left to die
Yeah,
in a way.
for sure.
And do you think that your friend maybe would have lived longer if there was more resources where you were?
Not necessarily him, because he was probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. The way he overdosed, there was no, actually, yeah, because what's one of the big things we preach in harm reduction is never use alone, always use with someone, or at least tell them. And if he would have told somebody, hey, I'm about to do this, then yeah, possibly he could have been saved. And we also have a number to call as well back home that you call it.
Yeah,
And if you just give the address and give a check-in time. So like be like, hey, if I don't call in 10 minutes,
Oh, I didn't know that.
send rescue to my house.
Wow.
So that's also another service we provide.
yeah, neverusealone.com.
Yeah.
I think harm reduction is very beneficial. It's just using in general is risky. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
But
and
people
what
are
we
going
have
to be using. They're going to be using anyway, and there's nothing we can do. We can't like just lock addicts up or like lock them up in these treatment centers. Like some people are just going to be on the streets. There's like that's it.
Yeah.
That's their life. And do we want to prevent people from having any like somewhat of a quality life by not giving them these resources? Like that's
Yeah.
kind of the side I'm seeing. I do understand the other side. Like I get it. Like but that's kind of saying that well those people aren't worth life.
Also, too, it's not just about them, but like their families. When we leave, especially with an overdose, what I've experienced is how much devastation it creates around everyone who that person essentially affected in their life. It's just like that's the part that I think we don't think about when we're using. We don't think about, oh, if I die tomorrow, what's going to happen to my family? What's my dad's mental place going to be like? Keeping them alive and providing these services and meeting them where they're at is also trying to save someone's daughter, save someone's son, so that, they don't have to get that phone call. It all comes down to saving lives. I just had a tooth problem, right? I had to go and get antibiotics before they're going to work on my tooth. It's the same thing. There's steps in front of treating the actual problem. I do feel like treatment centers and sober livings and things of that sort need to communicate more with these organizations, because in a lot of places, harm reduction is the first point of contact. And if more treatment centers would be on board, it would create a lot more revenue to not like monetarily, but
To get like more resources in the treatment
yeah,
centers.
yeah, for sure. One of the biggest things that we try to do as well is it's for addicts, run by addicts. Most of the people in harm reduction, we like to have lived experience with it, because that way, once again, we can meet them where they're at. Like we understand, we know, and so that we come from a place of empathy. Yeah, that's just a huge thing, is just to let them know that we care. We're not giving up on you. And yeah, we care about your life. All of the arguments against it, I feel like can just, it's as simple as dead addicts don't recover. Like I know I say that a lot, but it's to every argument against harm reduction, I feel like that simple saying says it all. And that's what Sarah said a lot. That was kind of like her thing, that, when people were in doubt, that normally alleviated a lot of their doubt. I just wanted to read the actual definition of harm reduction. Harm reduction refers to a range of intentional practices and public health policies designed to lessen the negative social and or physical consequences associated with various human behaviors, both legal and illegal. Yeah, I guess that's something we can kind of talk about too, the legal and illegal part of that.
Harm reduction?
Well,
Yeah, what about harm
reduction in itself isn't illegal. Well, there is some aspects of it that are still illegal. Like there's still states where syringe exchanges aren't welcome, things like that. But what they're referring to here, I believe, is the the illegal use. So like using illegal substances. But the legal side of that would be like the harm reduction practices that most of us practice every day with putting on a seatbelt, right? We know people are going to drive. We have to in our society. But to mitigate the risk of injury to themselves, we put seatbelts in cars.
Dude, I like that.
Yeah.
You don't think about harm reduction that way.
Yeah.
I didn't think about harm reduction that way.
Yeah, but that's harm reduction.
Yeah.
That's like a very simple
Like even brushing
form.
your teeth,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah,
your teeth
that's
don't rot.
Yeah.
that's harm reduction. Yeah.
Oh, it's so much more simple.
It's
than
so
I realized.
Yeah. People get too caught up on the drug aspect of it, and they don't understand how much they actually practice harm reduction. So why wouldn't we practice it in
And even, why wouldn't we practice it in, like, drug use?
in everything,
Yeah.
even drug use?
I feel like I had a breakthrough.
I had a breakthrough, too.
Yeah.
Breakthrough.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's like explaining it to a fifth grader.
Yeah.
You know what
yeah.
I mean? Damn.
Or like just putting a helmet on when you ride a bike. Like it's all.
Yeah.
You're not allowed
That's
to
harm reduction.
ride bikes without a helmet in LA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Fuck.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's not legal. Like if you're like a biker riding on the mountain
Oh,
here.
same in Illinois, actually. I think. Anyway.
It's kind of a crazy way to like look at it as far as like because it just slips everyone's mind on everything that we practice every day. Looking both ways before we cross the street.
It's literally just like, how do we prevent death?
How do we prevent overdose deaths? And the numbers are insane nowadays.
Not even just that, but I mean, like specifically with addicts,
and
but,
even
like,
the
harm reduction in general. It's just like, how do we prevent death, and how do we help people have quality lives?
Yeah.
And the diseases spread through it. What are the stigmas you've seen with harm reduction?
One of the biggest stigmas is the diabetic debate. Like, why should we give free needles to addicts when, insulin needles, we have to pay for them at the pharmacy, stuff like that. And the way I look at it is that is wrong. That's like a huge flaw in our system. To compare the two is comparing two evils, right? Like it's wrong and it should be fixed, but you shouldn't lessen the importance of this other disease just because something unfair is.
Addiction is seen as a moral issue.
Yeah.
From people
exactly.
who are not addicts, so it seems like they're like it just comes down to like people viewing this as worthy and not.
Yeah.
Literally the stigma in itself.
Yeah.
But really, why isn't everyone worthy of life?
Exactly. So yeah, I agree with you. The diabetic argument is valid.
Yeah.
Like in a way, like why aren't they receiving needles like they
Yeah.
need? Like why that could be a whole thing. Like why aren't most medications that people really need
Exactly.
to live.
Yeah, why is that not provided? And like why do people need that's a whole
Well, exactly. And the thing about the diabetic thing is I go, don't be mad at drug harm reductionists, be mad at Big Pharma because insulin was originally a free patent and it was meant to be a free patent. And what ended up happening was the drug companies got a hold of it and started selling it. It was never meant to be sold. It was meant to be consumed.
And available.
Yeah. So that's not, I feel like the blame should be pushed on a different group. But, when someone's upset about something, it's easy to kind of not look into the whole situation, but just go, oh, aha. Like, I have someone immediately that's, I can blame this on
to point
her.
the finger on.
Yeah, because you always want to find that person who's at fault in things. I think that's just human nature. But really, what we should be asking ourselves is, well, how do we help them too?
Yeah.
Not how do we help them over this person. Harm reduction has always kind of walked that tightrope. And the only thing that really matters at the end of the day is keeping people alive. So
I don't think it's harm reduction that's stigmatized. Like you said, like harm reduction is very simple things like putting a seatbelt on. It's harm reduction towards certain groups of people.
yeah.
It's not
It
not
is.
the harm reduction, it's the people.
Yeah.
Fucking
is.
real.
It is.
That is
Yeah.
so true. Is there anything else you have to say on harm reduction before we wrap it up?
If you need any supplies, any Narcan, any harm reduction services, you can always Google whatever state you're in, whatever city you're in, harm reduction, and most likely there'll be one that you can get access to. They will meet you with compassion and they will meet you with love. You know, I can only say from my harm reduction, but I know if people are doing this, they love you and they want to see you alive. So don't be afraid to ever reach out for those services. Also, I want to say that I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be alive right now. I've had 28 overdoses, and that was reversed by Narcan. I kept getting chance after chance. You know, a lot of people would say that I should have got it the first time, or I should have got it the second time, or the 10th time you OD'd, you should have got it. The 15th time you OD'd, you should have got it. Well, it took me 28, and now I'm getting it. If those services weren't provided, I would have never had the opportunity to be where I'm at right now. And
How long do you have sober now?
7 months.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What are you in 7 months?
Yeah.
What?
It's crazy, huh?
Wait, what?
Yeah. I just want to say thank you to Andy Beeler and Stephanie Toth for just all their love and compassion, even when they were going through active addiction and struggling. They both had so much heart and so much compassion for their fellow addicts, and you know, they let nothing stop them from helping. And those are the people who are very rare, I feel like, in this world, and we need more of them. And I just happen to be very fortunate and blessed to have known them.
Thank you. Thank you so much, dude. Thank you for coming on and sharing your experience with harm reduction and what you know about it.
Yes.
I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude.